Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome to our first Playconomics workshop. I am Alberto from the Playconomics team. I am also an associate professor of economics at UNSW, and I am the co-creator of Playconomics. The first thing I want to make sure with this workshop is that you are as relaxed as possible with this assessment. Remember, send us an email at support@lionsarstudios.com anytime you have an issue. We want to make this a zero stress assessment for you, and we are absolutely happy to help if you're finding any problem with it. I can see that we have people online. Please ask questions if you have anything you want to know. But also for those that are watching this as a recording, that's also the objective that I have in mind here, to just talk with as many people as possible, not just those that are coming live to the event. So I've got prepared some content that I want to show each week. Yes, this will be a weekly appointment. We are gonna do this noon workshop every Friday. It's not compulsory, and you don't need necessarily to follow me every week at noon. But of course, if you have any question or if you are interested in the game, what I'm gonna do is dig a little bit deeper every week into the topics, showing the levels, guide you through what are the economic concepts that are applied in each of the scenarios that we have in the game. Well, without further ado, let me just give you a quick preview of what I plan to do today. This is gonna be an introductory housekeeping session where I'm just gonna make sure that all the basics are clearly fleshed out for you. I'm gonna show you the website, how to download the game, these kind of things. I am super happy to take questions as I go, so please feel free to ask at any time. The first thing you need to do when you want to access Playconomics is to go to the website, and you should be familiar at this point with our website, playconomics.com. There you have it, right there. So if you go to playconomics.com and then you log in as you have done to access your ebook, you can just log in as you would, as you have done before. Now I'm gonna show you my dashboard, which contains a lot more courses than you would have, because I am an admin and we are using the platform across multiple universities and in multiple courses. But this one is specifically for UNSW T3 Econ 101. So if I go to this page, which is the page that you are familiar with, you can from here download the game online or launch the online course, which I'm going to do right away. So launching the online course right there. So I'm going to now log into what we call Academia using my username and password. And again, here there are a lot of courses, but just for the sake of simplicity, let me jump into the course that pertains to you, Econ 1101 at UNSW. I want to attract your attention to this Chapter 0 Playconomics part of the ebook. You can see here that we have tips to get started, which include a link to this workshop, plus some instructions on how to get going with the game. So have a look at this if you need any extra information. You can also access the recording of this video directly from here. And here you can see part 1 and part 2. You can see that these are timed events. You can see some leaderboards here as well. I'm gonna touch on this later on, but the basic idea is that every week I am gonna do a workshop at noon on Fridays where I'm gonna analyze each and every scenario, really guide you through how to play it, and also teach you a little bit of economics as I do it. Very well. Now, if we go back to this page here that we were looking at before, if I click on download game, I have two options. You can download for Windows, download for Mac. It does not matter which version you select. In fact, you can download even both in two different computers and start playing on one computer and interrupting, maybe closing your application and opening it in another computer, and you can get going without any problem. So if you find that your Mac is a bit slow, you can try on a PC if you want. You can go to the computer labs and run the game on UNSW PCs. You can do whatever you want because this is a cloud-based game. We run everything on our servers, so we don't really specifically point at any computer. You can play on any platform you want, really, as long as it's a Windows or a Mac computer. When you click, you can download the game and get going with it, just like I did. One note here, if you are a PC user, remember that you need to unzip the file, not just click on the folder and go in, but remember, unzip the file so that you can play the game. Otherwise, it will not work. So remember to unzip it when you get to that point. This was a super short introduction to the website, how to look for the sections in your ebook, where we're going to discuss each week additional content for Playconomics. And it's not just going to be part 1 and part 2. I'm going to go on every week adding parts and parts to it. And also how to download the game and how to select the platform that you want to use. After you download the game, you are going to find yourself facing this login page with it's very simple. You can use the same login and password that you use to access your ebook and the Playconomics website. Again, here I've got more courses than you're going to see. You're going to see only one, this one here, because this is Econ 101 at UNSW. So this is the practice period. As I was saying, we have this server message just to make clear that from this point onward until October 14, the game is in practice mode. This is a period where you can experiment with the game freely, and you shouldn't worry too much about any of the things that you do, because the real assessment period will start on October 18th and will end on November 11th. So this is a period for you to experiment with the game, to try things out, and it's a period where the developers are going to do some server tests, and in this period you will notice we're also going to probably release some builds as the time goes on. Very well. At this point you've got this selection here in the middle of the screen. You can see that the single player and the shop is for now locked, but we will unlock this feature as we go. Every week we are going to add features to the game that I will discuss in the weekly workshop. For now, we have these 4 initial scenarios. That's how we call it. If you click on any of them, you can, by the way, if you click on the course itself, you can see a little description here, approximately the time that it's going to take to run through these scenarios. Just to give you an idea of the time commitment that it's going to take. And remember, the game is not compulsory. You do not have to play the game. You can focus on, for example, short answer questions entirely without ever having to play the game. We think it's a great tool for experiential learning, but we don't want to force anyone to engage with it if they don't feel comfortable with it. So there is a description here, as I was saying. Also, it looks like my camera is a little bit in the way there, so let me see if I can move it. There you go. I'm going to put it maybe here in the middle for now. Very well, so you can get a description there. Let's start from chapter 1, factors of production. Now, this is how we envisioned you to actually interact with the platform. So we are envisioning you to start with these scenarios from the first one, then move to the second one, to the third one, and so on in this order. So you can go through this scenario in order because they essentially work as a tutorial for the game. So start with the first one, for example. Here you can see how many scenario points you're going to earn. And if you go on your ebook page, you are going to see how we transform scenario points into marks. But just as a shortcut, know that 15 scenario points mean 1 course mark. So that's the ratio. So 15 scenario points translate into 1 course mark. And here you have a little description of what this scenario is going to be about. And then you have 2 modes here, easy and hard mode. The points that you're going to get do not change depending on what type of approach you want to take, easy or hard. And you have a little description here of what easy and hard mode means in the context of the different scenarios. The easy and hard mode may be different scenario by scenario, so have a look at each and every scenario for a description by hovering over the easy and hard button. In this case, the easy mode is simply giving you a little bit of an indication of what are the objectives that you need to achieve. It's just a bit of breadcrumbing to help you out with that. Very well. Here we are with the chapter 1 scenario. You can see down here at the bottom the controls, how you control the game. You can do it with your arrows, or you can use WASD. The way we do tutorials in this in this software is that you can just get close to characters, and you're gonna get pop out a speech bubble with, you know, just some indication on what to do next in the game. In this case, this wizard is telling me to press D to move to this other wizard. And then when I'm talking with them, I can also press this start button here, and they're gonna just give me a very thorough description of what's going on, a little educational content, while also telling me how to play the game. And while I'm talking with them, time is paused, so I don't have to stress, but I can also unpause time just by clicking here. These wizards are gonna explain to you, I can also roll, as you can see, these wizards are gonna explain to you how to control your agent, how to move around with your agent, just like that. And in this particular level, it will be really simple. You're just gonna have to walk through the level and do a few things to start getting familiar with what are the basic elements of the game, like the factors of production, natural resources, the idea that there is a shop. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time describing these scenarios because they are very, very self-contained, and all the explanations you need are inside the game. We have done, we put a lot of work trying to make this as understandable as possible. So just approach the wizards and ask them your questions and get the indication for what you need to do next. At the end of the scenario, this wizard is going to suggest that I put down my apple on the table, which I'm going to do right now. And if I want to skip through the scenario, I can just speed up time like this, clicking these arrows here. I can even pause time completely if I want to think and stop 1 second. But if you let it go, the scenario is gonna end at a certain predefined time. But if you feel that you have done everything that you wanted to do in the scenario, there is nothing left, you can speed it up like I did and wait until the end, or you can even press this button here, which will immediately finish the scenario. So I'm going to confirm that I want to finish the scenario, and here I get my scenario recap. It shows me the level of happiness that I have achieved, which was the objective of this scenario, and hence, based on my level of happiness, the percentage score that I'm going to get. Based on this percentage score, I am going to get some scenario points, in this case 3 out of 15. And because I've never claimed points before, 3 of these points are now claimable if I click this button here. So I'm going to click it, and as you can see, I am now verifying the scenario on our servers, and in a second the scenario is going to be verified. You have this alert here if you want to check later. Your scenario has been verified. These are the points that have been achieved. I can at this point also close this like that. These scenario points will now appear in the ebook in your progress page and will count towards your course marks. As simple as that. Remember, you need to claim your rewards if you want to accrue these points. It's very important that you do it. Read this. You can open to get more information with this question mark here, if you want to know exactly how we are calculating the points and also what it means to claim the reward. But in a nutshell, just remember that you need to claim your rewards if you want these points to be assigned to you in the ebook and for your course. Sometimes it's possible that you're going to play the level and achieve a lower score. Don't worry, because in that case, you are just going to achieve less scenario points and you will have nothing to claim. In other words, you can try and try and try as many times as you want until you increase your top score. And as you increase the top score that you have achieved, you are going to get more scenario points. Absolutely no stress. You don't have to worry. You can replay this as many times as possible as you want. You don't have to worry about losing marks at any point in time. Okay, now going back to the main menu and going back to the other scenarios, this scenario here, it's again very similar to the one I have previously showed you. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Just try it out. Figure out how to play it just by following the tutorials that are in-game. Same thing applies to Chapter 3. If you have, though, any questions about any of this, let's talk about it next week in the Friday workshop coming up next week noon, where I am going to actually talk about the educational component in each and every of these scenarios. So if you want more information, more unpacking of what's going on in this scenario, let's wait for next Friday. Bring your questions, and I'm going to try to cover as much as possible. Here we have, finally, a different type of scenario that we call City Builder. The City Builder is a little bit different. You can play it in sandbox mode, and as you can see when I hover, I get this information. The sandbox mode is essentially a mode where you won't achieve any scenario points, but you can play the game without having to worry about the time limit. You can just play for as long as you want, experiment with anything that you want. Then we have an easy mode where you are competing with a benchmark, with a fixed benchmark that we selected as developers, and then a hard mode where you're going to compete against the benchmark set by other students. Now remember that you get the same amount of points, everything is the same, irrespective of whether you select easy or hard mode. This is just to create a little bit more of a challenge for students that want it. But if you feel that this is a bit too overwhelming competing with other students, just select the easy mode like I'm doing right now. There you go. Now the level is going to load for me. And this one we call City Builder because it is a little bit like building your own city. I suggest you zoom out a little bit. You can press E and Q if you want to zoom out, or the scroll wheel on your mouse as I'm doing now. The wizard is going to give you some information, so have a chat with him or her if you want. Now zooming out a little bit, I want to attract your attention on a few things. In this particular level, I'm going to pause the time. So this is what I did right now. I just paused the time so that the simulation is now stopped and I don't have to worry about time passing. You can see, and now I'm going to move my camera again around a little bit, up here maybe. You can see down here a graph, and this is the benchmark I was talking about. This is your objective. By the end of this time period, you need to be above this red line in terms of the happiness per capita in your economy. And you can see that the next benchmark, the next objective happiness per capita is 17.06 happiness points. So this is the objective of the level, and the way you play this level is by simply selecting a card and putting it down in the world, like building your own little city. In the next weeks, we are going to see how we are going to expand that to include things like public goods, pollution, climate change, and all the things that we care about in this course. Now, let me put down a producer of blueberries. So I'm just going to place it in the world. There you have it. And also, let me put down a worker house. Perfect. Now, I have put down this card and this card. If I want more information about these particular agents, I can just click on them or use the arrows at the bottom to navigate and get more information. In this case, I can see the money that they have and the amount of happiness that they have achieved so far in this level. And the same applies for your workers. Here you can see what the worker is intending to purchase as a consumption good. And here you can see the breakdown of their day, how much time they are planning to spend doing leisure, which is a lot of leisure if you look, so this yellow part, and how much time, the green part, they are intending to spend working. And you can see that the objective of their percentage of day that they want to put into work, it's actually with the objective of consuming a blueberry. Very well. You can also at any point access their budgets. In this case, this particular worker is going to consume 100% of whatever they earn and they have in wealth in that particular day, but you could decide to suggest to them that they should consume less. And you can see that in real time, their shopping list would be changed accordingly. But let's leave it at 100%, so they're going to consume all the things that they have. Similarly, this producer, this blueberry producer, you can see their budget and their happiness as accrued so far. This is what they are planning to purchase as well. And also you can choose to set a budget for them as well if you want. Very well. So this is just the basic information here, and I'm gonna start by just having a look at their money and their happiness. Here I've got, if I click on this particular, on the GDP, I'm gonna have here a little graph indicating the GDP of the economy moving forward. And here I can see the markets that are currently active in this little city builder scenario. We have a labor market, because these workers are going to offer labor in exchange for a wage, and we have a blueberry markets. We have producers of blueberries and consumers. You can see that if I hover here, I can see the demand for blueberries, which is pretty high at the moment. There is a lot of demand and very little supply. Now, I don't want to get into the educational component, because we're going to talk about the educational parts in the next weeks. But here, clearly, there is a big excess demand, right? And what would you expect to happen to the price? Well, the price of blueberries are probably going to increase to try to balance demand and supply. Similar for workers, there is a lot of supply for workers so far, but no demand. If I unpause the game, let's see what happens. So if I unpause the game, I need to click on this arrow here, just a heads up to unpause the game. And you can see that very soon the markets are gonna begin to work. So you can see that the price is changing, and you can see the little graph underneath the values here, which is a great way for us to show you how things are changing over time without overwhelming you with a lot of graphs. So we put these little graphs underneath everywhere so that you can have a feel of how things are moving in your economies. I can speed up time as well if I want, so that you can see here how money is exchanged hand. So this worker is getting paid to offer work, but he's also purchasing the goods at the end of the day. So he, is now purchasing, now he's offering his labor, now he is getting to pay for the blueberries that he wants. And this is really the flow of the economy. You can see the GDP now is beginning to grow. You can also see the graph underneath your per capita happiness. Really important, the objective here is measured in per capita happiness, not total happiness in the economy. So we really want you to try to be as efficient as possible. Otherwise, just having a larger population will create more happiness. Instead, we are focusing on per capita happiness. So as you think whether you want to add more cards or you want to add more, for example, producers or workers, keep in mind that we are gonna track not the total happiness in the economy, but the per capita. Adding these extra agents need to make the pie bigger and the efficiency higher for the economy. Otherwise, they're not going to be especially helpful. I actually didn't survive much in the game. I couldn't catch up with the benchmark, and so my game is now over, unfortunately. I've got a little bit of town happiness, though, not the best. I got 50% of it, so I get only a little bit of scenario points. Now, going back to the main menu, let me play this in sandbox mode, just show you how that works. So sandbox mode is exactly the same level as this one, but in sandbox mode, I don't have to worry about time limit, and I don't have to worry about catching up with the benchmark at the end of every period in the game. I'm gonna just do what I did before, put down a worker and put down a company, and then I'm just gonna let the game go really quickly because I want to show you how prices are adjusting. You can see here that there is a lot of demand, not much supply, so the price of blueberries is going up to reduce demand while at the same time prop supply up. Similar for the workers, we are trying to balance the market, and this is happening, this is something that the software does for you. Your choice at this point could be to introduce policies. You could introduce a tax and subsidy or price ceiling or price floors in the different markets. Or you could just leave the economy go without any check. As I was showing before, keep an eye on things like the budgets for the individual cards, and remember that you can always delete a card by pressing the trash button down here. You can see that I'm not doing too badly. If you look at the graph, my yellow line is kind of catching up with the benchmark, but there is something I could improve in the economy. Like, for example, I could put another company inside. What would happen if I do this? Well, with more companies, we should probably expect the price of blueberries to go down, as you have seen in the standard demand and supply graph in your course. But remember, this is now a full general equilibrium model where you can see not just one market at a time while everything else being the same, but you can see the interaction with the labor market as well. And of course, now that we have more demand for labor, you can see that the little graph is pointing upward now for workers because the wages are going up. And that might have a spillover effect through the income effect on the price of blueberries. This is why we think a simulation like Playconomics is so important, because everything you have studied so far has been very rigid and very much presented as a partial equilibrium analysis. You look at one market at a time and you study that specific market, assuming that everything else stays the same. But in real life, all markets are interacting and all markets are connected. So a change here affects everything on other markets on the other side of the economy. There are a lot of interesting issues that you can tackle even in such a small level as the one that you're seeing here, for example, in this little simulation that we're watching together, which is super simple. There is one market, one labor market, and one final good market, but there is a lot to learn. For example, money doesn't really matter that much in the economy. What matters is when money changes hands. When you see this kind of exchanges, this is when some happiness, some surplus is generated in the economy, when things are bought and consumed. The amount of money per se is not that important. Is the distribution of money important? Well, you can see here that workers tend to have a little less money than produce. Oh, actually, this is not true anymore. Workers are getting a bigger share of wealth in the economy because we have two productive locations and a lot of demand for workers and only one worker that is offering their services. And you can see that for this reason, the worker is pretty much accumulating a large part of the money in the economy, as is depicted by this little pile of money above them. And if you look at their happiness, you can literally track it over time. You can see that they got richer over time when I introduced new producers in the economy. Yes, that really changed the distribution of wealth when I had increased competition in the blueberry market. The worker became richer, and in fact they are also accumulating a lot of happiness, even more than what producers are accumulating, as you can see in down below. Also, you can see that producers are trying to purchase workers here to hire workers, so you can track all these decisions, and this particular worker is buying blueberries every day for their happiness. So with this super simple model, you can begin to understand what is the difference between money distribution and surplus distribution, or utility, if you want, following the economics jargon, utility distribution in the economy. This level can really help you understand inequality and how inequality affects the outcome in a region. It tells you about the importance or the relative importance of money. In this case, money is not really that important. It's the transaction that matters and the happiness that is accrued. Also, you're going to see that relative prices matter, not just prices per se. So if workers are getting a large salary of $4, then a $5 blueberry is not that expensive. So relative prices are really important. Equity is also very important because, as you know, happiness at the beginning, when you start and consume the first goods, it's much higher than when you have consumed a lot of them because of decreasing marginal utility. Hence, there is a logic built in already in the models that suggests that equity, fair distribution of goods, is kind of important. Is it better for one person to have 3 apples or to spread the 3 apples across 3 persons in the economy? Well, in terms of the per capita happiness, spreading is better because you are actually facing less of that decreasing marginal utility problem that happens when one person consumes a lot of one good. It's very interesting to see what happens in the long run when you are adding more companies. Well, you are forcing the price in the economy to decrease for that good. When you increase competition, it's like shifting the supply curve in the long run. And is that good for society? Well, a reduced price might actually make company more efficient because they will produce in the part of their marginal cost curve which is associated with a lower average total cost. So think about how that long run consideration for the economy, the efficiency in the long run, matters for your decision of how many houses and how many factories to put down in the economy. So, you could think about social policies like, for example, a price floor for workers. For example, you could say, well, I want workers to, so I don't want the wage to go below $10. So now we are really imposing a minimum wage. Is this good for workers or not? Well, you have to read through the lenses of the economics here, because of course at $10 there's going to be a lot of supply of workers. You can see it here, 9 suppliers of, and when we say 9 suppliers, I mean 9 units of effort. There is only one worker here, but he is offering 9 units of effort. You can think of them as hours in a day, for example. But demand is now lower. There is an excess supply driven by my price floor. But the level starts with a little bit of a price floor, right, of 0.5 in the economy. You can always take it down to 0 if you want. You can experiment with this. The question is there an optimal minimum wage? This simulation can actually offer a lot of interesting intuition about that. And remember, you're going to need it if you want to catch up with our benchmark, because you need to make your economy as efficient as possible. The other thing that is interesting, I think, to look into is the question of whether workers should save money or not. My worker here is consuming 100% of their income in blueberries. Would it be better if they saved some money? Would the economy slow down? This is typically a macroeconomics type of argument, but it's important here. And of course, you can also study this in a microeconomic sense, because what happens when there is more income? What happens to the demand curve? Is it shifting right or left? And that, because that in fact affects the total amount of surplus in the economy and hence the total amount of utility. Same question for the entrepreneurs. Should they use much of their money to run the company, or should they consume most of it? For example, I could reduce the money that my entrepreneur is putting aside for company to 20% of their wealth, and instead suggest that they spend 80% of their current money. Would this be good or bad for the economy? That's another super interesting question that has been studied by economists for a long time, and that has a real impact in situations like we are facing now after COVID, where there is high inflation and there is a recession in the economy. This is really an important economic question. You can also, if you want, play with things like other policies. For example, suppose I am putting now a tax here. What I'm doing with the tax is, because I'm not putting the money back into the economy, I'm I'm now putting a tax that will just basically siphon the money from the economy into the government chest, which you can see here. You can see the taxes that I'm raising, and you can see that my budget, the government budget, is increasing now substantially. And this is happening by basically taking money out of the economy, but because I'm not investing, I'm not subsidizing anything at this point in time, I'm basically just taking out all the resources, all the money from the economy. And what's happening if you do that, you can see it here. Well, taking the money out is not immediately affecting happiness much, because again, money are not that important, but it's definitely affecting prices. With less money around, the general level of prices is likely to go down over time. And notice also the GDP. GDP is going down here, but my happiness is remaining roughly constant. What's happening here? Well, GDP in this case is calculated in actual current prices, and the prices are going down because I'm extracting money from the economy. So lower prices doesn't mean there is any change in relative prices, and hence happiness has not changed almost at all. But the GDP calculated with lower prices seems smaller. That's why GDP is not usually calculated just on the current prices, but using fixed level of prices, so that it does not suffer from this effect where the level of price affect what you think the economy is doing. The economy is doing fine. Look at the happiness, even though the GDP seems to be going down. These are all lessons that really show you how the economy is complex and everything feeds into each other. There are a lot of general equilibrium effect in the economy and interesting things that it would be really hard to analyze without having a simulation like the one we have done here. It would be really, really hard to even explain it, let alone allow people to explore the use of policies and other economic tools to improve the happiness of an economy like the one that we're seeing now. This was just like a first look at these scenarios, but we are going to talk more about the educational aspects every week. So please come back to the live event or to the recording if you are interested in knowing more about this. Now I'm going to spend 1 second answering any question if there is. I'm going to just have a look there. So Shahzad is asking, good afternoon, sir. Could you please explain that if we fail at some parts of the game, could we try to get a better score and improve tanks? Okay, Shahzad, I think I answered this question when I said previously when I was showing the end of day panel for the scenario, where you can never lose points by playing badly, because you can always play again, improve your top score, and get the extra points that you need. So no worries at all about that. And another question, does inflation and rising price affect the happiness of citizens? So in this model, I'm going to let you explore that. In this model here, there are situations where higher inflation doesn't really affect anything. It just changes the absolute level of prices, but not the relative prices. And so it has no effect, not even distributional effects of income and happiness in the population. But please try and explore how, in fact, inflation could affect the agents in the economy by potentially changing the distribution of wealth in the economy, and so the distribution of happiness in the economy. And I'm definitely going to touch upon this more next week. It seems like I covered most of the questions. I'm going to wait a little bit more to see if we have any other questions popping out. I am, showing up with a little delay in my YouTube videos, so I'm going to just wait a little bit so that you can get this message and post any question if you have any. Otherwise, it's now 40 minutes into the workshop, which is, I think it's a good time. It's good to keep this workshop relatively short. I'm going to put timestamps on this on the description section of this YouTube video, so you will be able to just select what part of the video you want to see clearly. So Sajad is asking, so we could basically add more producers and more workers to boost the spending and improve GDP, and we get more happiness per capita. Yeah, so I am gonna leave that question for you. Yes, so adding more companies, it's, you know, reducing the quantity that each company is producing, so bringing them closer to the efficient point where they produce at the minimum average total cost, which is why economists are in love with markets, because they tend to get to this efficient outcome. But if you put too many companies in the economy, you're going to see that they're going to start making a loss. And when they produce a loss, then you're going to have those booms and busts that we see in real economies, where a company shutdowns, doesn't hire for this period, workers are not getting their salary, they're not consuming, and you can see the economy going into potentially a recession. So just adding producers may not always be the optimal strategy, and similar for workers. You could also try by putting a subsidy on a market and a tax on the other market. Would that change the distribution of wealth and happiness in the economy? Does it matter? I gave a glimpse of this before, saying that it does matter who consumes in terms of the total happiness of the economy, because it's kind of better to spread consumption around if our objective is to maximize happiness. All open questions, and in fact, I would hope that whoever is playing the game really explore with this and tries to connect to the concept in the course. But I'm certainly gonna come next week with my tablet showing you how this refers to the demand and supply model and give you more insight on this. Thanks so much, Ajad. These are fantastic questions. It's really good to see you thinking about these topics, because these are really important topics in real life as well. We hear politicians talking about this all the time, and it really affects our society. We're going to see how it can affect climate change and other topics as we release more scenarios each week. For the time being, thank you so much for coming to this first introductory housekeeping admin related workshop. If you have any problem, do not hesitate to send us an email at support@lionsartstudios.com or contact Jonathan or Rachel, your lecturer in charge and tutor in charge. We are always here. We answer day and night, and our objective, first of all, is to make this a good experience and reduce the stress around this assessment as much as possible. Until next time, thank you very much. I know that behind that camera, you may be all over the world at this point. I know that some of you may be in difficult situations. Just let us know if you need help. In the meantime, ciao ciao from the Playconomics team, from the Econ 101 team. We hope you have a great weekend. See you very, very soon. Take care. Thank you for coming, and see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.